baik tu dia jadi mereka tahu रेडियो फीजी बहुत रेडियो फीजी रोज सुनता हूँ
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
Good evening, Fiji. In this bulletin, Church says no inquiry into reports of alleged sexual abuse. Ministries anticipate budget cuts. And tourism industry asks for relief policies.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Jackie Spate.
The Catholic Church of Fiji will not conduct an inquiry into reports of alleged sexual abuse of children after allegations surfaced in a report by TVNZ's One News. Head of the Catholic Church in Fiji, Archbishop Peter Lloyd Chong, says the claims reported by One News were well before his time, and he believes there will not be sufficient records to conduct a proper inquiry.
The Archbishop says the Church has not received any reports of sexual abuse of children since he took office in 2013.
According to the Fiji legislation, is an harm inflicted on a person who is a minor, and the minor is one that is under 21. Our guide moves it down to 18. So anybody who is under 18, abuse we report that to the police. But so far, we have not come across a case of that matter.
One News reported the alleged abuses were carried out by New Zealand priests and brothers who were moved to the Pacific and involves decades of alleged abuse, deceit and cover-ups. Australian clergyman Father Julian Fox, convicted of sexually and physically abusing boys in Australia, was sent to Fiji in 1999 after police started investigating him. Fox served here until 2003.
I'm sorry, but I don't have any record and I don't have any information on that. I can look it up, but that case was even a long time before I came into office. I came into office in 2013, so I'm only familiar with that era.
Archbishop Lloyd Chong says there are now more stringent processes for moving clergy or religious leaders to different locations.
To leave one diocese and to be transferred to another diocese, there's a whole strict procedure for that. I have to give my testimony that this person has no history of sexual abuse or other abuses. Anybody coming in too will have to do the same. I have to receive a letter from their bishop or the leader of their congregation.
The Catholic Church has set up a guideline requiring all such incidents to be reported to police, and if any allegation is deemed credible, then the accused is barred from the church. Lena Rees, FBC News.
The Minister for Local Government and Housing does not expect an increase in her two portfolios in 2020-2021 budget allocation on Friday. Pramila Kumar says the submission for funding focuses on completing several capital projects. The challenge is how to do more with less. Kelly Vadala reports.
The two ministries have prepared submissions based on Fiji's current economy, knowing that funds are needed in more urgent areas.
We want to complete the bar stadium. We also want to complete the Lotoka swimming pool. We want to commence with the Savu Savu market, which is at the moment on hold. We also want to get the Reki Reki bus station completed. So these are some of the projects that where it started and it needs to be completed.
Kumar is hopeful of enough money to run the First Home Grant and other housing-related initiatives.
To continue with the first land purchase grant, all that request is there. Even for social housing to assist people who are not able to pay their rent. So under social housing, we subsidize rent for PRB tenants as well as HUT.
She also wants to put funding towards streamlining systems and removing corruption.
If we fix our policies and procedures, we will minimize corrupt practices. And this is what we need to do every year.
The minister says it is the responsibility of all sectors, departments and ministries to work together in reviving the economy. Kelly Vadala, FBC News.
The Fiji Hotel and Tourism Association hopes the new budget will provide relief for operators to minimise the impacts of COVID-19. Association Chief Executive Fantasha Lockington says the past 3 months have been devastating, forcing operators to make tough decisions. Apinisa Wangarantova reports members of the association hope the budget will address 3 key areas and reduce expenses.
The tourism industry has been the worst affected by COVID-19, and operators believe cutting costs will help improve their packages.
Some of this is obviously going to be looking forward to some relief from import duties and taxes. This will allow tourism businesses to offer more value for money in terms of what they can do, so they can reduce their costs if the import duties on some of these items that they rely on, and they can provide better packaging options.
Lockington says there also needs to be a mechanism for hotels and resorts to be rewarded for responsible behavior.
Number 2, anything that will support behavioral changes when it comes to looking after the environment, for instance. If you pay ECAL as a levy and you can get some sort of credit back because you have invested in some equipment, a program or a project that reduces your carbon footprint, I think this will be a plus for Fiji generally.
Minister for Economy Ayaz Sayed Kayum has assured that the budget will address some of these needs. However, operators must first take responsibility.
That if we, for example, get rid of the taxes, for a minute if you think about it, if you get rid of the taxes, but the pricing structure for F&B, for example, room rates still remain the same, then you still won't be competitive enough. There needs to be some form of an incentive for the hotel industry to look at the actual pricing structure itself, apart from taxes.
Tourism operators say they are ready to invest more if there are supportive policies announced on Friday night. Many smaller establishments have closed and there is uncertainty if they will ever return to business. Apinisa Wangarantova, FBC News.
Following a budget reduction of $143.7 million in the current financial year, the Fiji Roads Authority expects a further decrease come Friday's national budget address. The authority says despite this, public safety, improving road accessibility and rehabilitation projects will not be compromised. Josai Nanunga has more.
Outgoing Chief Executive Jonathan Moore says the FIJRU has also felt the impact of COVID-19 and it is likely to be accelerated in the future.
In the midst of a global economic situation like we're in now, Fiji's not alone in this, we have to be pragmatic. I think we all realise that it's going to be a harder year this coming year, so we have to prepare for it. But as always, the FRA's main focus will be on public safety. And when we get issued the budget statement, then we'll be able to work out what to do with it to make sure the public is safe.
Although economist Dr. Rohit Kishore says FIJRU has had a massive budget allocation over the past 5 years, and the funds have been of good use for infrastructure development, particularly roads and bridges.
They would have done much of the road works required, much of the constructions required, and yes, they have done it if you see around. So what I would say, given this financial constraint, yes, the budget allocation will be reduced not only to FIJRU, I think across the board. And I would say that they could still work with it. I mean, that should do with them.
Come early August, people in Suva, for example, will see the benefit of what we're doing now on rehabilitated roads rather than constantly trying to repair potholes. So we want to maximise the rehabs, maintain public safety and accessibility.
The FIJRU's budget was dropped from $563.1 million to $419.4 million in the 2019-2020 budget. Moore says the authority will continue to plan its work strategically based on available funding. Chosai Nanunga, FBC News.
A 28-year-old woman and her son injured in an accident at Wangandra and Nadi yesterday remain in hospital. The woman was transferred to the Lautoka hospital while her 3-year-old son is still at the Nadi hospital. A man who was in the same vehicle died at the scene and a post-mortem was to have been conducted today. The road death toll now stands at 16 compared to 28 for the same period last year. Up ahead, new platforms for COVID-19 withdrawals. And Lami Airport upgrade begins.
Pala natang go aprosa ng garse go erkraki do televizyon na parang na Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
Radio Fiji 1 nandomo ibiti.
Questions are being raised about how to apply for Phase 2, the Fiji National Provident Fund COVID-19 withdrawal scheme, which can only be done online. Concerns have been raised as how members will be able to apply if they don't have access to the internet. However, the fund has set up a platform to assist Fijians. Kritika Kumar reports.
Payments are made fortnightly as of June 23rd and ends on the 18th of next month.
Yes, we have a whole platform in front of our office to try and onboard members who don't have that facilities. So we're dedicating resources to make sure that we bring our members along in terms of this journey.
Chief Executive Chauchi Koroi says the online platforms have empowered members, allowing them to check their contributions and plan better. The FNPF will make the third payment next week.
We have so far processed about 21,000 for this phase. There is another 4,000 that they have applied through these 2 weeks, so we'll also process those for next week's payment.
What are the immediate needs of our members? We'll respond to it, but in the manner that we can afford.
The fund dispersed the second payment on the 7th of this month to 21,238 members, amounting to $4.7 million. $2.6 million was the government top-up portion. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
A 14-year-old girl allegedly attacked with a knife in Kambisi, Singatoka, remains admitted in the Lautoka hospital. The girl was allegedly struck with a cane knife by her mother's de facto partner. Her mother, believed to have been attacked by the same man, died at the scene. The suspect, Anand Prakash, has since been charged with murder and attempted murder. Bail has been extended for former Fijian Holdings Limited Chief Executive Norzab Farid. Farid appeared in the Suva Magistrates Court this morning, charged with 3 counts of indecent assault against 2 female employees of the FHL Group. His lawyer told the court a representation has been made to the Office of Public Prosecution on the charges, and he has yet to receive a response. The prosecution has asked for 28 days to respond and also to speak to all the witnesses in the case. The matter will be called on the 14th of next month. Work has started on upgrade of the Lambasa Airport runway. The airport was closed yesterday and all flights will be redirected to the Savu Airport. According to Fiji Airports, the upgrade includes the resealing of more than 1,000 metres of runway surface and will take about 3 weeks to complete. The apron where aircrafts are parked, unloaded and loaded is also being extended. This portion of work will continue until September. The Lambasa Airport is the last outer island airport network to receive an upgrade. The airports at Mbureta in Levuka and Lakemba in Laos were upgraded last year. Earlier this year, upgrade works were conducted at the Vunise Airport in Kandavu. The reopening of a few resorts and hotels has come as a relief for local entertainers who rely on tourism to generate income. 2 entertainment groups in particular are the Vo Dance Group and musical band Inside Out, which, like many others, have felt the impact of COVID-19. As Felipe Naikaso reports, the Love Our Locals campaign is a shot in the arm for performers.
Doing what they do best, these artists are happy to be back performing, especially after COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, allowing resorts and hotels to look at ways of attracting locals.
Since tourism has been affected, our entertainment industry has been affected as well. Just last week we had our first gig together as a band for Inside Out after 5.5 months. So that gives a fair idea of how things have been.
The next few months will also be critical for these groups.
Everyone that you see performing today, this is their full-time job. This is what sustains us. This is our livelihood. Yes, so we dance, we choreograph, we make new pieces. We also teach.
Support from locals and resorts have been welcomed by the Vo Dance Group and Inside Out.
This is really good. It's a breath of fresh air as well for us artists. For us as a band Inside Out, we're actually regrouping.
Just so filled with gratitude being able to be back in these spaces and to perform, especially for a local audience as opposed to the usual tourist audience that we usually perform for. It's very inspiring and humbling.
They both will be part of the Fijian Resorts weekend events over the coming months. Philip Naikaso, FBC News.
Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama says Fiji needs strong leaders at all levels of society, but sometimes people forget what leadership really is. While officiating the traditional leadership curriculum at the Centre for Appropriate Technology and Development in Nandave, Tailevu, Bainimarama highlighted that real leaders set a good example. The students at the centre are from Korelevu, representing the Asana of FIJRU for Certificate 3 leadership training. Bainimarama reminded the students to do their best by being strong and compassionate.
You will learn many things in this course, but it will be up to you to make sure that the mechanics of leadership are guided always by the desire to serve your people and do your duty, even if your duty is unpopular or personally unpleasant for you.
He reminded the students to resolve disputes in a civilized manner and put the vanua first. Turning overseas, American actress Kelly Preston, who has appeared in films including Jerry Maguire and Twins, has died aged 57. She was battling breast cancer for nearly 2 years. Her husband John Travolta announced in an Instagram post yesterday. And Whitney joins us now with the latest in business.
Thanks, Jackie. In business tonight, FSC improves sugar production and tree planting exercise to help villages. Stay with us.
My name is Neha and I'm from Karavi, and Mirchi FM, it's hot.
Mirchi FM, it's hot.
The three sugar mills have crushed 182,545 tons of cane, just under 10% of the season estimate. The Fiji Sugar Corporation says this compares to tonnage of 137,446 crushed in 2019, showing an improvement of 33% year-on-year. The FSC says mill performance shows an upward trend with operating time efficiency 40% higher than last year, and average weekly mill stoppages 28% lower. Sugar production of 14,016 tons to date is 22% higher than 2019, but cane purity and recoverable sugar rates remain below expectation. We now join Sinifa from HFC Bank with the latest from the money market.
Sentiment for the Aussie dollar has taken a hit in active trading today as some Australian states reimpose coronavirus restrictions. The Aussie and Kiwi currencies are considered barometers of risk because of their close ties to commodities and China's economy. Meanwhile, the US dollar was hemmed into narrow ranges against most currencies as renewed concern about rising tension between the US and China and an increase in coronavirus cases put a dent in risk appetite. Markets now face an additional threat from tit-for-tat retaliation between Washington and Beijing over access to US financial markets, civil liberties in Hong Kong, and territorial claims in the South China Sea. Traders are likely to avoid taking any big risk before the release of data on the Chinese gross domestic product, retail sales, industrial output, and exports later this week. And that's a wrap from HFC Bank for now. Vinaka.
Turning to today's exchange rates as set this morning, the Fiji dollar showed regional gains today as it rose against the Kiwi and Aussie dollars, as well as the PNG Kina. It also showed improvement versus the Japanese yen, but slipped against the Chinese yuan, the US, greenback, and the euro. Commodities were mixed. Crude oil prices dropped to just above $39 a barrel. Gold lost a few dollars to close at $1,798 per ounce, and silver closed up at $19.02 per ounce. Fiji Water employees have helped rebuild local forestry areas near Navala village by planting 1,000 native trees. The tree planting was made possible by Project Wonderful, a volunteer program run in partnership with the Fiji Ridge to Reef program.
More than 30 staff travelled from the Yangara plant to Navala village for the tree planting exercise.
It feels good to give back to them because in such a bad time, COVID-19, and we are giving back to them, it's a great thing.
For Navala's 1,208 residents, the planting will help improve access to food and natural resources and has encouraged the village to think about continued sustainability.
The tree planting project is the first of its kind to take place here in Navala. The initiative has taught us to minimize deforestation and capitalize on reforestation to sustain our future generations.
Nico says Cyclone Winston hit them hard since most villagers lived in traditional thatched bures. Due to resource constraints, about half of them now live in tin homes.
I hope the villagers appreciate it. I know their future generations will appreciate it. So much yassi and whatnot being planted. It's pretty exciting.
We also are looking at planting some fruit trees as well. So native trees will come in as a conservation portion of the project, and the fruit trees will act as a food security.
The employees planted native trees and fruits on the village land. All 341 Yangara plant employees from Fiji Water will take part in Project Wonderful over the course of the year. Ritika Pratap, FBC News.
That's it from Business Tonight. We now join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thank you, Whitney, and good evening. In sports tonight, FIJRU AGM scheduled for this weekend. And match fitness, area of concern for Ba. This and more after the break.
Hi, Bula. I'm Selai from Nandi. I love Gold FM, only the classic hits.
Gold FM, only the classic hits.
The Fiji Rugby Union has circulated its annual report to members ahead of its annual general meeting on Saturday. The meeting will be chaired by FIJRU President and Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama. Chief Executive John O'Connor says they look forward to the AGM and discussing last year's reports, including those submitted by national coaches.
I think the main discussions will be the reports from last year and more importantly the financial reports, the audited accounts, which will be, in terms of the agenda, that will be the main agenda for discussions. Annual reports, reports from different coaches.
One of the 7 apprentices in the first Fiji Rugby Women's Academy wants to help change the perspective on girls in the sport. Former Natambua High School student Harina Eresito has been playing rugby for the last 4 years. She was first spotted in 2015 as a Year 10 student by her high school coach at Natambua. That same year, she attended the Fiji Under-18 Girls Rugby Sevens trials for the Commonwealth Youth Games in Samoa and made the team. However, the then 15-year-old Eresito did not make the trip as she was deemed underage at the time.
This is something that I want to let other girls get into as well. Because I've noticed a lot of girls they find rugby as a hard sport, but for me it's not, because it's a passion and a talent that God has given me.
The Suva women's rugby team is grateful to have experienced Fiji Under 15's reps such as Ako Rabato, Ada Danzi, Makareta Tunindao and Mere Moto mentoring their young players ahead of the Skipper Cup. The side is preparing for a tough opening match against last year's losing finalist Nandronga on the 25th of this month. Caroline Tavi has more.
Players young and old need to be fit and ready for the opener of the Skipper Cup.
A lot of learning key for them, getting them to play with older ones and also upskilling themselves. Most of them are just new to the sport, and for them to be around senior players and to be encouraged and to be supported by coaches who are amongst the team, I guess it's a positive thing for them.
While other teams are on their way in terms of preparation, the defending Women's Skipper Cup champions Tailevu have been facing financial difficulty.
We have been relying entirely on a donation from our own people. The little bit of money that comes in from the FRA, they take their cut.
But a shortage of money has not deterred FIJRU's training towards ensuring they retain their title.
It's a regime that they have to follow. They have been following, and there's a lot of physical activities going on. They are training.
The Skipper Cup kicks off on the 25th when Suva faces Nandronga and FIJRU takes on Namosi. Caroline Tavi, FBC Sports.
Despite an easy win over Navboa in their return to the Vodafone Premier League, Ba expect the Blues to be a different beast altogether. The men in black take on Lautoka at Churchill Park tomorrow. Aquila Dama has more.
The win against Navboa is water under the bridge now, as there is a bigger challenge tomorrow.
Saturday is history now, and Lautoka is up next. We know it's always been a good game against them. So there's areas that we have highlighted in the first match.
Areas like match fitness is an issue following Navboa's late goals last week.
Few areas, fitness is one, but that was expected because we just got less than 3 weeks to prepare. So fitness one thing, a bit tactical, but coach has it under control.
But overall, Mba is just happy to be playing competitive football again after 3 months.
When the lockdown was, there was no sporting activity or something. So they are happy with coming back after a long time. First game, win, that's a big thing for them. And it's a good start for us.
Ba will play Lautoka at Churchill Park tomorrow at 6 p.m. and the live commentary will air on Mirchi FM. Aquila Dama, FBC Sports.
Manchester United believes it will bounce back after missing a chance to climb into the English Premier League's top 4 by conceding an injury time equaliser against Southampton. United led 2-1 for 73 minutes before the Saints scored in the 96th minute. Manchester City's 2-year suspension from European football has been overturned by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. This allows the club to compete in next season's Elite Champions League competition. Cricket Fiji will select an under-19 squad after the completion of the T10 Women's Bulla Bash League. The Women's League started last weekend with a lot of new talent on show. Cricket Fiji is now planning to have an under-19 squad with the hope of some competition with Samoa and Vanuatu.
3 different squads, so there's no under-19 World Cup for the women, but to have a national under-19 squad is one of our aims, to fit the national squad. They'll train together, but we're looking to work with our counterparts in Vanuatu and Samoa to have some under-19 women's games, and hopefully that will lead on to more under-19 games in the East Asia Pacific region.
In today's play of the day, we head off to Super Rugby Australia with this beautifully executed team try from a line out by the Rebels against the Reds. That's it from Sports Tonight. Coming up in new media, Google to invest up to $10 billion in India. Details after the break.
Bulla FM number 2 NSR.
Bulla FM number 2 NSR.
In new media tonight, Google has unveiled its newest plans. They include its biggest investment yet in India, saying it will spend $10 billion there over the next few years. And Angie joins us now with the latest in weather.
Hello there and welcome to the Weather World. The conditions have been changing quite rapidly today. One moment it is sunshine and the next is rain, so it was being quick on your toes kind of day. For overall weather, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, that too for a Tuesday. Now moving over to the other centers. In the west, sunny skies were warming. There is absolutely no chance of showers, so it's a good deal. Eastwards from Peck Harbour to Suva, breezy spells continued with isolated scattered showers in the mix. And up north, it was fine with cloudy spells. The night will have scattered showers. At sea, southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, rough to very rough seas. Now Now turning to the tides, high tide at 2:05 a.m. with low tide at 8:31 a.m. Sunrise at 6:37. For tomorrow, more great spells are lining up. The morning will have few sprinkles, but that will change to nicer and a brighter day. Tomorrow's temps, the Sokoton Bar is hitting the cold radar at 18 degrees. So if you are in Bar, stay warm, especially at night. And looking further on to Thursday, warmer and more humid. 1 or 2 brief showers may interrupt, but overall, finer spells to take over. That's all the sun and shower weather news. It's back to Jackie.
Thanks so much for that, Angie. In the world of the weird and the wonderful, while most people around the world are practicing social distancing, the new normal has given birth to another weird but wonderful action by people around the globe. Recapping the main stories for tonight. Church says no inquiry into reports of alleged sexual abuse. Ministries anticipate budget cuts. And tourism industry asks for relief policies. Now for these stories and others, tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. Our poll question we're asking, are you excited to be watching National League matches live on free-to-air TV for the first time? Visit our FBC website to answer. And before we go, our shot of the day, this beautiful sunset was shot by Noah Tawake from Yalava village in Madawata. And you can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj, by Facebook page FBC News and our Twitter page at FBC_news. That's your news for tonight. From the team and I, stay safe. Good night.
We love here in Tavois. We love Today FM. Today FM rocks.
Today's hit music on Today FM.